Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to my overview for the live letter 58. I always have to check with the Roman numerals. This just wrapped up its first half, but we're going to be recording it now and posting it to YouTube because the second half is Yoshi-P just walking around the Ultima server in-game. There's a chance that he may let slip a few details that might be juicy, and if that's the case, we'll probably have to do a follow-up, or maybe it'll be at the bottom of the translation by the time we're done with this video. Thanks to everyone on Twitch for putting up with me as I record a more YouTube-centric piece of content, and thank you to our translators over on the Final Fantasy XIV Reddit Discord. Every time we do a live stream, we use their translation with their permission, of course. Iluna Minori, Gist, and Miyuna are the three names I see of people posting here. I know I saw Vinay make a post right before I started this as well, just pinning everything so we had a start point for it. Live letter 58. I think we all knew this was going to start as kind of a more gloomy live letter given world circumstances. So they did spend the entire first 20 to 25 minutes talking about more in detail about the situation in the world right now and how it's impacting the development team, and giving people a much deeper insight on exactly how it's impacting the development team. Things that they've managed to overcome and things they still have to overcome as well. They did also share a letter with a player that a player had sent to them. I'm going to read you a rough translation that was posted here, but know that they will be posting official translations to all the stuff you'll see us talk about in this video onto the forums at some point later, which is something that they normally do. So it's a Dear Yoshi-P, I am working on the front line fighting coronavirus. I was playing a lot of Final Fantasy XIV before the pandemic began. I was looking forward to playing Final Fantasy XIV with my friends every day. The friends I met in-game are what give me strength every day. It is my job to fight for all the patients affected by coronavirus, and I'm truly grateful for Final Fantasy XIV because I feel this is giving everyone strength to get through all of this. Thank you for doing all of that and keeping your team safe. So that was a letter that was written in by a player, and it's pretty heartfelt to have something like that. They read it, they did a rough overview of it. Foxconn was actually translating the first 20 to 25 minutes of the live letter here, and so just wanted to share that with all of you. After that, they went into, again, speaking about how everything has been affecting their development. They said that by the time the situation got really serious, they were about 70% done with the development. All the voice work was done. They're even able to now check for bugs on their local servers before updating it to the main developing server. However, there's a lot of issues with getting access to the development servers. Japan isn't really set up for working remotely. You go to the workplace, there's really tight security at the workplace, and that's just how it works. So they've had to really restructure everything internally. They've had to make sure people can access a work environment at home, and that they can then upload their work from the work environment at home to the central development server, where they then go through with quality assurance and testing everything before pushing it through to the actual live servers. And so while they've been working on that, it took them about 2 weeks to get all the base environment set up. They've still got some other issues. One is how long it actually takes to do uploads and downloads through the testing environment. It used to be instant when they were, in the office, because that's where the servers were. But now with their home internet connections, it's not always a reliable, short experience. He said it could even, they don't know, it could be anywhere from 4 hours to 20 hours to upload or download the data that they actually need. So that's one of the big things they're still working to overcome. On top of that, some people just don't have great work environments at home. They don't have the space or the conditions with which to work optimally. So that creates all sorts of problems in itself. So they don't know what the delay is. They were originally looking at about a month, but they're saying now it's more likely 5 or 6 weeks, and that they'll continue to update us as they continue to work on this stuff. They said the staff has a lot of stuff they're hoping people enjoy in this patch, and that they're really motivated right now to work, as hard as they can to get it out to the players given the circumstances. But just be on the lookout for more information in the future. We won't know when the next live letter is until we know when the next patch is. So I wouldn't expect a live letter for quite some time. Maybe drip feeds of information, maybe email interviews, but expect a very big chasm in the Final Fantasy XIV news department for the next several months. So then they actually went to talking about patch 5.3, and we got some exciting stuff. I'm not going to lie. We got all the usual stuff we expect. We also got this patch artwork with the Crystal Exarch and the Crystal. And for anyone who hasn't done the 5.2 story yet, both of those things, there's some meaning behind it. We'll maybe talk about that on State of the Realm on Tuesday. Maybe. And the patch name is Reflections in Crystal. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about this in detail later, but this is going to be the conclusion to the Shadowbringer story, and it's going to require you to have the Crystal Tower series done, as well as the My Little Chocobo quest. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about that in detail later, but if you don't have... So My Little Chocobo, just the amount where you get your Chocobo. So if you don't have your base Chocobo, get it. That shouldn't even be a question anyway. If you haven't done Crystal Tower, that's going to be mandatory. You have no choice now. Go do it as soon as you hear this. If you haven't done it for whatever reason, because if you didn't do it, you've been wrong this whole time anyway. Go do it. And again, we'll talk more about that later. But yeah, it's going to be the conclusion to the Shadowbringer story, and then 5.4, 5.5 will be leading us into our 6.0 story. That's how all of our expansions have worked. They always try to do like a big conclusion in the 0.3 patch. So that's norm. That's the norm for us. Then moving forward, they gave us a quick little screenshot. As Yoshi-P puts it, that's a lot of tall people. That is indeed a lot of tall people. So I don't want to talk too much more in detail about that. But yeah, we'll see how the Shadowbringer story concludes, in a sense. Let's see. Going down, the new dungeon is called the Hero's Gauntlet. It's going to be trust system compatible. A quick screenshot. So most people would say that this looks like Lakeland. However, there are also Ilmeg looking creatures in here, fey creatures in here. So it's questionable if it's like a gauntlet or we know it's gauntlet. If it's like a fey gauntlet, if it's taking place in a dream realm of some place, of some kind. Maybe this has to do with setting us up for something with the fairies, with our new Titania, who we are their little sapling. But something else, something funky is going on here. You can tell by the sky, you can tell by the fey creatures. Maybe this has to do with something that's happening with the events of 5.2. Maybe this is a result of all of the so-called heroes that have been coming forth and venturing out into the world, and some sort of event that is taking place due to all of that. The sky itself, as my chat is bringing up, is a very similar sky to one we've seen recently. But I won't say much more than that. Please continue to speculate. All we know here is Lakeland, question mark, question mark, question mark. Oh, what's that up there? What's this little thing up here, huh? It's this little light that looks like a star shower of some kind. Some fanciness going on there. But we'll have plenty of time to speculate on that later. The new beast tribe will indeed be the dwarves. Good, we got 2 of the 3 correct in our predictions based on what we were told during the fan fests leading up to Shadowbringers. And it will be focusing on crafting. This is just a quick little scene from that, and they don't really give us any more information. We will make things. We are crafters. The location of the tribe won't be anywhere you find them now. We'll find that next live letter. It's probably like the Qatari. The Qatari have their own location. Obviously, we have the Dream Realm for the fairies, and for the Qatari, they have that new little section on the side. So it's probably along those lines. It's probably just like a new little section off to the side in Calusia, I'd imagine. Maybe it's somewhere else. New Chronicle quests. We will get some quests for the Sorrow of Wurlet. That's the current weapon series, the same quest series where we fight Ruby Weapon. It's going to be more story focused. There will not be a trial, which was in the original prediction path, but some of us were hopeful, that maybe we'd get another trial. We will get an instanced encounter, and I have my own predictions about that, but there will be no trial. Now, this is an interesting screenshot. We have Sid and we have the Warrior of Light. That looks to me like an Ironworks version of the Ultima weapon or Sapphire weapon. It just doesn't look like Sapphire weapon enough for me. That looks like an Ironworks built Ultima weapon. It's got the same color scheme. It's got kind of the same head. But I do wonder if this is going to play into at all the Sapphire weapon itself. So this isn't... I'm not really that surprised by this, but we'll see. we'll see if this is going to be some weapon-on-weapon fighting, because that'd be pretty cool. A solo instance where we control an Ironworks Ultima equivalent, and we use that to fight Sapphire Weapon. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying it could happen. Okay? That's my prediction. That's my prediction. Okay? When it's wrong, cool. But that's my prediction. There will be a new trial tied to the main scenario. This is Newt's Secret Trial and Secret Trial Extreme. And that's all we know. They won't tell us, but they said that you won't be able to predict the boss very easily. We have a few very linear predictions we could make, but nailing one is a little bit tougher. So I'm just saying that patch artwork puts all sorts of thoughts into my mind. But there's like 3 or 4 candidates that could like make for a finale boss. So, well, that'll be interesting. I like how in the comment section in the Japanese stream, they said that everyone in the comments was like, Cape Westwind? That's got to be Cape Westwind, right? Cape Westwind Extreme? You know what? With one of the things that's later in this live letter, it may not be that much it may not be that surprising of a reality sometime in the future, but we'll get to that in a bit. And then they just like joke and comment about it a little bit. The next installment of the Nier raid, Yorha Dark Apocalypse Chapter 2. That should be a very familiar scene for anyone who's played Nier Automata, and you can probably begin to guess what the final boss of this tier would be. I'm very hopeful that the second raid tier is a little more interesting than the first. It's not all too uncommon for Final Fantasy XIV's first raid in a raid tier to be largely set up and to be kind of underwhelming. For me, this one was a little more underwhelming than I guess I was kind of hoping for, as someone who really wants them to take the Nier concept and not just only do Nier. I want it to have some sort of impact on Final Fantasy XIV's world and lore, even if it's over on the first. With areas as big as this being what they are, it has to have some sort of impact, and I hope that this isn't just a continuation of Nier Automata, and that it does indeed build on events or things that have happened on the first, or just the Final Fantasy XIV world. This is going to be a big opportunity for them to do that, and it's going to have good music. So, come on. That goes without saying. It's going to be called The Puppet's Bunker. So, please look forward to it. It's going to be a good time. And new mechanics, of course. We'll get more information on that in part 2. There was also job adjustments, but they basically said nothing about this. They said they'll talk more about this in the next live letter. There's going to be some PvE adjustments. I don't know, maybe some range physical buffs. Maybe like bring down the power of like a job or 2. I can only really think of one job they could theoretically nerf, but I don't even know if they'll do that, to be honest. Summoner. I don't know if they'll even bother doing that. And also the frontline challenge will be all frontline campaigns. Instead of just being 1 per day, it'll just be all the frontline campaigns. I'm kind of glad they're doing this. I haven't really been a big fan of the daily challenge frontline since it came out. So I prefer this, even if it then means that I may get modes that I don't like if I ever actually queue into it. Let's see here. Resistance Weapon Quest upgrade. So this was mostly the same information we got from the last live letter. 5.25, we started building the weapon. We got a new trial as part of the bonus. In 5.3, we get a new exploration instanced area content. Like Eureka, more than 100 players will enter the field, but the content inside will be completely different. I don't know if I believe that. The content inside will be completely different. I don't know about that. So the name of the exploration zone is the Bosjan Southern Front. So perhaps because it's a lot more, Eureka was a lot about exploring an area that's ether was out of whack. There was a lot. It was a lot of unknown, and it was a lot of kind of a learning experience. Bosjan Southern Front, we know based on what happened in 5.25 that this will largely be almost like a war zone. So I'm wondering if there's more focus objectives like taking and controlling areas from the enemy legion, still with things like Notorious Monsters and Boss Fates, but a little bit more objective driven and a little bit less go here, kill NM, go here, kill NM, go here. I'm sure it'll boil down to that by the time it's all over. And I'm also still kind of hoping we get BA2 before the later patches. There's no mention of it here, which is a little bit disheartening, but I don't know. I guess I don't really believe that they say the content will be different. And I'm okay with that. I liked Pyros and Hydatos, and I was okay with Onimos. It was only Pagos I didn't really like. But that's a dangerous statement to make. I'm actually looking forward to the official translation, because this is the unofficial translation. I wonder how it reads in the official one. They are going to have something equivalent to Logos actions right from the get-go. I think that's a good choice. I think that was a major screw-up with Eureka. And to be honest, you don't have to upgrade your relic in the exploration zone altogether. We've known this for quite some time, that you would have the option to upgrade it outside of exploration content. But regardless of which way you do it, the story, you will continue the story. The story will be mandatory regardless of which action you actually decide to take. Which is really then weird, because the exploration zone, again, sounds like a more war zone type area. So how do you advance a war zone if you just did your weapon way out elsewhere? I'm curious to see how it actually ends up working out. But yeah, take to the field as the tale of the resistance unfolds. More details in the next live letter, and that's probably not coming until 0.35. They say most likely, and we haven't decided when. Come on, this will be patch 5.35. Come on. Some more updates to crafters and gatherers. Trial Synthesis was weird of a name to lead with. So Trial Synthesis sounded like, like Extreme Trials. Apparently, they're really expanding upon the training manuals that exist now. So right now you can practice recipes with training materials, and they're going to make it so you can try and practice any recipe in the game with this system, as opposed to the way people are doing it now. So I don't know, we don't really get too much details about how it'll work, but that's going to be a thing. So if you've ever wanted to just practice before spending the materials, that looks like it'll be an option across the board from this point on. On top of that, you'll be able to now look at items in your inventory, and you'll be able to use that item to find all recipes that use that item. So it's basically reverse searching. Instead of searching for recipes that use items, you're using the item to search for recipes, which is good. That's a good little quality of life thing. It's present in other types of games. So more quality of life for crafters. They've been really good at this expansion. I've been glad to see it. And then we have some other stuff, new custom delivery client, changes to the collectible system, basically making it one set list of collectibles instead of a rotating list, because there's kind of just too many items for that, and it's kind of bloated. And that'll be coming sometime in 5.3x. Along with Ishgard Restoration, the next ranking season and the Restoration entering its third phase. I hope they learned some stuff from the second phase of Restoration, because I don't think there's any server that's done with it. I know there's 2 Japanese servers that, if they're not done with it, they're really close to done with it. But this phase kind of went the opposite direction to the first phase of Ishgard Restoration. The first phase was really, really short, and people didn't like that. This one's so long that as soon as the ranking system was done after the first 10 days, it got largely abandoned, and that kind of sucks. There wasn't just some in between or like more seasons of the ranking system, which is kind of what we were all hoping it would be. I hope. It seems like there's no real indication here that they've made any changes, so I hope they did, but maybe they didn't. I don't know. that's as good as we're gonna get. So please look forward to it. Skysteel tools will also get more upgrades, just like the relics did. You got plenty of time to get them done, and they will upgrade further in 5.3x. There's still a lot of things that will be added in 5.3, but I'll talk about those in the next live letter. So there's a bunch of details that didn't get mentioned, apparently. They don't really say if it's about a specific topic, but again, we'll get an official translation. We might revisit this in a future video. But then we get the Realm Reborn revamp, ARR. And this has been something they've been talking about for a long time. For a long time, they said it won't be possible. For a long time, it would take too many resources. It's happening for real now. We've known that this was going to be happening for quite some time, but the Realm Reborn main scenario quests will be getting revamped and streamlined. Everything from patch 2.0 through 2.5 will be largely condensed. About 13% of the total quests were completely removed, and the remaining quests were pruned heavily. Basically, if they need to introduce a vital character or a vital character plays a role, they kept the quest, but they took out all the little, bullshit in between. Just trying to get rid of... You're here to experience the story. They just tried to get you from A to B to C to D in the story. So there's a lot, apparently, that's been removed. There's a lot of steps that have just been completely removed from the main scenario. Less quests, and the one that you got are easier to complete. They literally said that their biggest problem is people would get through a Realm Reborn, see the quest they had to do to get to Heavensward, and then like quit in the middle of the 2.1 main scenario quest. So they're hoping that this will get them done, get rid of all those unnecessary fetch quests, and just get into the story and through to Heavensward as quickly as possible. They're also going to be upping the amount of experience points, making more gear available by adding it to quests, so that way players don't need to stop and do side quests or they fall behind the main scenario and level. And they can just do one continuous experience, maybe do some of those like unlock quests in between if they really want to, and get through to the more recent stuff quicker. That is the main goal here, is to get less people quitting in the Realm Reborn story quest. They actually even said they're going to be increasing the experience points and gear from Heavensward, Stormblood, and even eventually Shadowbringers quest areas, so that if you don't want to do side quests to level your first job, you don't have to, and that those can be used exclusively for lore or leveling alternative jobs. So expect some updates to that in the future, but not in patch 5.3. You shouldn't. Eventually, you just won't have to do side quests for leveling your first job, anyone who has a new character, and that's without preferred world. Now imagine if you're on a preferred world. Oh boy. Now another big change is that from 5.3 onward, and we mentioned this earlier, it will be required for you to obtain your chocobo and complete the Crystal Tower questline. This will no longer be optional. Now it's not part of the main scenario, but it's mandatory. It's very similar to how you have to eventually do Ifrit Garuda and Titan hard mode to get through, I think, the 2.5 main scenario. This will be the same now. So that's why you can't do 5.3 without doing these, is because it is now a permanent thing that everyone has to do. New players, now you may have less quests, 2.0 to 2.5, but you got a 24-man to do. And honestly, with how involved the Crystal Tower is with the main scenario, you were kind of missing out if you weren't doing it anyway. It's actually a pretty good 24-man on its own, and it's only been enhanced over time by various lore and updates, especially with Shadowbringers. So I'm actually really glad that they're kind of forcing people to go through this in some way. Now, this was a big announcement. There had been rumors about this for a while. So people who do out-of-bounds tricks and people who like to climb terrain had noticed that in a Realm Reborn zones as of 5.2, there was a skybox. There were collisions. There was a ceiling to the height that was added, very similar to the rest of the flying in the rest of the game. Yoshi-P acknowledges this and confirms it when he says flying mounts will now be available in a Realm Reborn area starting in patch 5.3. And this is actually a love project of the dev team. So Yoshi-P has never once told his dev team to do this. He has said it would be too many resources, we need to focus on other things that are newer and more recent, and that the dev team in their free time worked on this, and that we are now getting into the culmination of the Realm Reborn revamp. And if not for just the dev team doing it in their free time, we probably still wouldn't have it even with the revamp. It's so much so that Soken is actually not prepared for this patch. He says that a lot of the sound design in the Realm Reborn areas is actually only designed to work with the way the zones were designed originally. So there may be sound effects or sounds in general that just don't work in 5.3 when you're flying around. So please be aware of that going forward. That's, sometimes the dev team may do something in their spare time, and then Soken's just like, well, all right, I guess I have to do this now. And you won't need any ether currents. You just need to beat the ultimate weapon, the final quest in the base 2.0 main scenario quest, and then you'll be able to fly in the Realm Reborn zones. Your Chocobo will also automatically be able to fly. There's actually a quest called I Believe I Can Fly a little bit later into Heavensward that makes all your non-black chocobos able to fly. Now all your chocobos will just automatically fly, and that quest will be removed entirely. On top of that, there will be no swimming. So there's just flying. They haven't added like underwater areas to any of this, so just flying for this one. And also certain terrains are now going to be no longer climbable because you can fly. So they're just eliminating certain like little collisions and jumps that they've ironed out since they've had to basically completely revisit these zones and make anything that wasn't visible to the player before or that didn't need to be rendered. Things had to be added all over the map so that there's a complete three-dimensional plane and not literally chunks of the side of a mountain missing because the player wasn't supposed to be able to see that side. So a lot of textures, a lot of work has to go into this, and I'm glad that the dev team was so passionate that they decided they were going to get it done, and that's really cool. And then this is one of the final announcements, one of the final ones. Unreal Trials and the Faux Hollows. So I see Chloe in the back, and Chloe learned some black magic voodoo from the Wandering Minstrel, because I don't think anyone was ready for this. So apparently they're adding a new trial difficulty to the game and a new minigame to boot. Every patch, they are going to be cycling for a limited time a boosted up version of an old fight with a new difficulty and slightly reworked mechanics, because a lot of the stuff that was made ages ago was not made with the current game involved. Apparently the discussion was, how do we make old content, like people when they scale down to it, how do we make it so it's not like just gets decimated? And they were like, well, why don't we just bring it up to level 80 instead? And someone was like, that's a good idea. And so we are going to be getting the Akafa Amphitheater Unreal in patch 5.3. Now, Unreal should not be taken as some... We don't really know how to judge this yet. So the way the content is described is that it should be, at least in most ways, similar to the original version, but bumped up a difficulty, or bumped up to the highest level, essentially. Now, they said that they had to make adjustments to mechanics because, you know, the game has evolved since then. But I don't think this Unreal difficulty will be even a Savage level. I personally am not predicting that. It could be, but I don't even think it'll be that high. I think it'll be about what we expect from your average EX trial. Just my prediction. But the really odd decision is the limited time factor. Every major patch, they're going to rotate this trial out for a different one, which is weird because I would just like them in the game permanently. And I think there's room for them to maybe revisit this idea in the future of, and this will make more sense when I explain the other half of the Faux Hollows, or the Unreal Trials and the Faux Hollows. But we're going to be getting Shiva. Apparently the reasoning for Shiva was, well, we have Shiva in 5.2. Let's just do Shiva in 5.3. They were originally going to do Titan, but apparently they're like, Titan Extreme is like Savage difficulty. Let's do Shiva. We can make Shiva better. We can make the old Shiva a better fight than even it is now. And that was it. So they said that they haven't really optimized the development for this yet. And so they may be able to bump it up to 2 trials per patch. But if they do that, then it really doesn't make sense to have it be limited time. So the big thing the reason I want to do limited time is the maintenance cost of the content itself. Because I guess as the problem eventually becomes, what happens when the next expansion comes out? They have to kind of redo this again. And it's kind of like an endless loop of bringing old content back up to max level. And so I guess maybe that's what they mean for that. But the big thing with this is once a week when you clear this fight, you'll get access to the Faux Hollows, which is a mini game that they don't really detail here. And the rewards, depending on how you play the mini game, will differ. We don't get any additional details about the rewards, but this is, because Chloe's in here, I'd assume this is essentially Wondrous Tales Unreal, as I imagine how it's going to work. But it's also only one fight, so it can't be precisely the same as Wondrous Tales. And I guess I don't really know how else to kind of talk about my anticipation for this. The main reason why I don't think they should rotate out the encounters is because why? Why don't you just, so because of this weekly lockout, you could just make it a random Unreal trial per week, like in rotation, and then you don't have to take away other content. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with the limited time function. But maybe it works out. Maybe they can rotate them back in later, but then I'd rather see them make new... I don't know. I have really mixed predictions for this. I don't think it'll be that much harder than a normal EX trial. I think it'll be modernized, but not necessarily harder. I don't know if the rewards are going to be worth it, because they don't detail them at all here. And I don't know how I feel about the limited time thing. I'm a lot of I don't knows. I got to see it play out, or I need more information about it, because the limited time function, the weekly lockout, it just may not be that much of a long-term thing. I'm glad that they are starting to look at how they can create content with old assets, though. This is something that they've always done really well, but bringing old content up to max level is an interesting prospect I didn't think they'd ever really take. I think that the Eden fights were the closest we would ever see to that, but this opens a whole new door. We could have Cape Westwind Unreal. It could happen. It probably won't, but it could happen. We could see things like Turn 13 Unreal. We could have Good King Mogglemog Unreal. Okay, let's move on. Let's not talk about it anymore. Let's not talk about it at all anymore. Please. Okay. We'll see how it turns out. We'll have more information in the Part 2 live letter. We also had some miscellaneous updates. This is a big one. So you can now join Party Finder groups as a party. So if, let's say you and your friend are like, hey, you want to pug Savage this week? Cool. Okay, join my party. Then the leader of the party can just join a Party Finder. So instead of being like, oh, join this Party Finder, and then it's kind of annoying. It's like, okay, what Party Finder do you want to join? Oh, this one, the leader is this. Literally just the leader will join for both of them. And so it's essentially party merging. And so that's great. That's a really, really solid quality of life update that I didn't think we'd have. I just didn't think they'd do it, I guess. But it makes perfect sense, and I'm glad they are doing it. But even more impressively, players will be able to world visit while in a cross-world party now. Now, there are some caveats to that, but let me cover the thing that I skipped. The option to require one player per job will be added to the Party Finder. A lot of people do this. I feel like I have mixed feelings about this, because it makes sense on some roles, but for a lot of content, people legitimately lock jobs on like the weirdest things in the Party Finder. Like, I understand if you're like trying to do like ultimate or maybe like the last fight in a Savage tier, but honestly, the majority of Party Finder stuff can, as long as the players are good enough, can be done reliably with at least like one or two duplicates. Like, maybe you don't want two white mages, but you know, other than that, like, I don't know. It's a good option to have. It makes sense to have. People will use it. It will see a lot of use. But people already kind of just like overvalue not having duplicate jobs too much, instead of looking for players that are good. And then at least this doesn't lock out roles. Like, I've seen samurais lock out monks, even with the changes to the coffers, which doesn't make any freaking sense. It made sense in Stormblood, but people still do it now for whatever reason. They just lock out monks, but they let the other melees come. Who even knows why? I guess, cause I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. But it'll be an option. So if you use it, enjoy it. Your Party Finder is your rules. Number one thing to remember. But the big thing is parties being able to use the world visit system while in a cross-world party. That makes sense, and it doesn't at the same time. So the big thing with world visit, the functions you mainly use it for, and there are functions outside of this. You use it for hunts, you use it for maps. Those are open world pieces of content where it makes sense to visit. You can also use it to do like the market board, or to attend like an in-game event at someone's house or something. Like, you can use it for that. But cross-world parties don't really work for hunts in particular, unless they're changing the way that hunts work to make this work. When you are in a cross-world party and you do a hunt, all of your party members, it's as if they're not in a party for sake of them getting credit on the hunt. So it is basically everyone would be in the party, but they wouldn't be helping each other get max credit on the hunt if you did it this way. So it seems like a good quality of life update for a hunt, but it also doesn't make any sense for the hunt. So I'm wondering if they'll change the way that hunt credit is calculated to account for this. Because if they don't, it won't. This is a cool thing that just kind of sees way more niche use than even the one thing they're listing it for. So that's a wait till it pans out kind of thing. We need to see if they make calculation changes to that, and hopefully they do, because it would be great. I do hunt train server hopping all the freaking time. That is also, okay, so my Twitch chat's bringing me a few other uses. My static, I'm on Fairy. My static is on Fairy, I'm on Genova, and I swap servers for this. It's useful for static so they don't have to leave the party to get food or pots from a static member. Cross-world parties don't work for maps for the same reason also, so that's another down point for that. So people bringing a few other ups and downs to it. Some adjustments may have to be made, and it's a question of whether or not they will. I think that's the bottom line. New chapters added for New Game Plus. They're adding a Realm Reborn to it. We knew they were doing that for patch 5.3 when they did the Realm Reborn revamp, so that's just them reiterating that. They're adding vendors to all major cities to exchange token items. So token items are stuff like, I guess, ruby weapon totems, or I guess they should have been a little more specific. It lists everything that is exchangeable, which is a lot of things. So we don't know if that means tomestones, but, you know, exchangeable token items, God, I can't even name all of them. There's so many, between primal totems and random exchangeables from, like, seasonal events, and, like, there's all sorts of stuff. I'm curious to see that, because that might also render some city-states like Lims and Lominsa to be even more popular than they already are. Because if people don't need to go to the newer city-states or the newer cities to even do these exchanges, then people are going to hang out in those starter cities a lot more, especially Lims on my server. There's also going to be a new menu for parasols, because they probably are adding more, so they probably should have a whole menu for it. That was it for the patch 5.3 preview part 1. Probably because of the intro and how much depth they went into and how the development team's currently being affected, they you know, probably just decided to wrap it up at about that hour-and-a-half mark, as it was about that point. They did do announcements real quick. There's a free login campaign that is lasting until May 17th. You don't get to play free that whole time. It basically gives you a set amount of time that you can play if you log in on an inactive account during that time. There's also discount sales on Final Fantasy XIV worldwide, a 30% discount sale in Japan, which is on all versions of the game, a 40% discount in NA, which is just for the Complete Edition or Shadowbringers, and a 50% campaign in EU for just Shadowbringers and the Complete Edition. And these are going on until April 29th. It looks like the JP one is ending on May 7th, so please bear that in mind. They're also pushing their YouTube series, The Creation of Shadowbringers, and they're even doing a bonus episode on Yorha Dark Apocalypse. That's going to be coming out on April 30th, so please be on the lookout for that. Just a few quick little screenshots of Yokotaro, you know, and a few things that he had to say during that actual piece. And then they just showed off their new Primals jacket, which they had to cancel the Primals concert, but at least they had so much merch prepared for the concert, and now they're just wearing the merch. And they'll make it available online eventually. Now, from this point on, I haven't read anything else. So in the second half of the live letter was Yoshi-P walking around the Ultima server and just kind of chatting with players. I'm going to quickly take a look at this, because it's been happening this whole time and it's still being translated. The devs did discuss the possibility of implementing an extreme version of Cape West Twins. But they didn't think Rattata was popular enough. Well, how do you feel now, Yoshi-P? How do you feel now? Cape West Wind Extreme confirmed. eStore is about to crash, so I'm gonna visit a server. Maybe we should explain what Yoshi-P. Oh, so they explained in English what it was. I will try not to leak any new information. Yeah, let's see. How did that go? Let's see. They showed people this special room that's like the Mordion jail, but it's basically his like lobby server that's like dev exclusive. They went to Costa del Sol. So they didn't break the Lims de Lominsa server. A bunch of people started showing up and finding him. What should we play? They said maybe we should do Crystal Tower together, do it minimum item level. I should play a different job, setting up a password for the party. He shouted the password in the zone. Tired of playing level 50 Black Mage. Sad face. Probably more exciting to watch me poorly play Ninja. Oh man. We're going to try to clear all 3 minimum item levels. So that's probably what they're working on right now. Someone is saying they've tried and couldn't clear. Not even 3k HP. Tank stance. So hard hitting. Yeah, see, this is what I expect it to be. Like a fun little experience, but kind of hard to follow along with if you don't speak the native language. So scary, yeah, because now he's just mostly yelling about mechanics and like the tank skeletons ignore the dragon, like do the mechanics. We used to have 2 tanks for this, a little bit of that. Yeah, so that's looks like that's what it's mostly been this whole time. There's not really any information, which is why I started recording this early, because I figured he was probably just going to be like let's playing it, like being like a straight up like Twitch streamer. And you know what? That's what he's doing. And it seems like it's a good time right now. I just wish I could understand it. And I know what my comment section is going to say, but that's probably going to be a wrap for the video here. We don't expect any more information to come out regarding the live letter, but hopefully those of you who are enjoying that part of the live stream are still enjoying it. But I've got to get some food, and I've got to play some Animal Crossing before Trials of Mana hits Steam later this morning. So that's going to be a wrap for my overview on the patch 5.3 part 1 live letter number 58. To everyone out there watching, please be safe, please be healthy, and if you enjoyed this video, like, favorite, subscribe, and share. We also finally released our caster versus on YouTube yesterday, so be sure to go give that a look. Tank is next, followed by melee DPS. Plus we actually have quite a little bit of Final Fantasy XIV content that I want to take the time to make during this massive amount of break time between news and new content. So thanks everyone for watching. I'm going to continue my Twitch live stream now, but on the YouTube side of things, I'll see you next time, and until then, take care.